Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is a brand new edition of the 20-minute podcast. And when I was putting together my short list of coaches that I really wanted to talk to, this guy's name was right at the very top. And again, I've gotten to know him over the last handful of years. Of course, we'll bring him in talking about the head coach of the Carmel Corsairs, Jason McKie, joining us. And Coach, great to see you. Great to be able to check in and talk to you again. And as we were talking a little bit off the air just before we started, I thought you had a great year last year. I really did. I thought that you made it. You made it to the quarterfinals. You end up losing to eventual state champion in NAS, but boy, I thought really, to me, the last 2 years, you make the playoffs a year ago and get in. And then last year, it seemed like you took another step. And, after I saw your team in the playoffs, Jason, I really thought, you know what, this is a Carmel team that I hadn't seen that good in a long time. And I don't know, did you kind of have that feeling as well that you kind of just could get the feeling that you had a special group there?
Yeah, definitely. It's just a testament to the kids in our program, a lot of hard work, a lot of time on task, weight room, meetings, understanding what our standard and expectation is. And, our 2024 senior class is a class who's played a lot of football at Carmel. These are kids, they were part of my first initial class as
Yeah.
freshmen. So,
Yeah.
they've got to play a lot of football. They played against a lot of the top-notch schools in the state when they were freshmen and sophomores. So they took their lumps early and understood, the speed of the game, and they've got to see, what these other successful programs here in the state are doing and what makes them successful. And not just them, myself and my coaching staff, we got a, up close and personal look to see, what makes these teams successful. What are they doing that makes them successful? And, we put our nose down and went and grinded and really, put together, the last 2 years have been really special. And that just shows the hard work that, the players have put in, our community, our faculty, administration, the support that they've given us, but also our coaching staff. We put in a lot of time, making sure that we have guys in the right position to be successful, make sure we're getting our kids bigger, faster, and stronger. So that way we give ourselves an opportunity to be successful on Friday nights.
I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned that senior class, that 24 class, and again, what was kind of unique is I know a lot of these kids played when they were young, coming up to the varsity level. So you had a really nice core of kids that were 2, 3-year varsity starters that are graduating. I'm looking at your signing list, and again, just some terrific players. Davion Reynolds, defensive back, wanted to commit to Northern Illinois. Johnny Weber, again, a kid that, boy, I thought had and still has all the tools. It could have been a higher level Division I kid, but welcome to recruiting. We'll get into that down the road a little bit. Torrey French, again, just another terrific player, and Jackson Reesner and Harlan May, another kid that's just a big time hitter on defense. How important was that to really set that tone? And as far as your team and the way they played last year, boy, they were, especially on the defense, they were fast and they were physical. How much is that you guys instilling that, and how much is that how much of it is it those guys just kind of buying in and really getting after it the way you guys kind of wanted them to get after it?
Yeah, and our thing is, every football team has an identity, and most of the time, the football teams, they take on the identity of their head coach, they take on the identity of their coaching staff, and I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of great coaches on my staff. Obviously, you know about some of the guys who I played with here in Chicago. Olin Kreutz was our
Yeah.
offensive line coach. Rasheed Davis, who was our offensive coordinator. Those guys were physical players when they played, physical players. So I feel like our identity is physicality. And the one thing that, hey, you know what? There's schemes, there's X's and O's and all of those things, but the great equalizer in the game of football is physicality. And I think that's what we prided ourselves on. We wanted to make sure that when you played Carmel Catholic, that you was going to be in a dogfight. There's going to be bumps and bruises when you left that game. And we wanted to let teams know that when we got off the bus or when they got off the bus at our stadium, that you were going to be in a fight. And that's what we prided ourselves on. We wanted to play a physical brand of football. We pride ourselves on being physical in the run game, but also we pride ourselves in being aggressive in the passing game. And when you have a team and when you have players like the guys that you mentioned that understand what our identity is and they understand what our expectation is, that's the type of, you get the type of results that we've had. So it goes back to just, establishing that hard-nosed presence in the weight room, that hard-nosed presence in the meeting room. We expect our guys to be men, and all those guys that you talked about, they're really good men that happen to be really good football players. And it just came about because of 4 years of development. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight. When they came in, they weren't men, and they had to really buy in and understand what we were looking for in terms of our players as a program. They had to know what each particular coach expected from them in terms of on an individual basis, geared upon their position. And, like I said before, like we pride ourselves on being a physical team. And here in the state of Illinois, you got to be physical with the weather and the elements and stuff like that. There's going to be times where you can't throw the ball 50 times all over the yard. You're going to have to just, tighten your chin strap up, bite down tighter on your mouthpiece, and be physical, running the ball. And then on defense, we pride ourselves on, executing, being in the right place, but also hitting, making sure we make those tackles because, the game of football is three things, Tim. It's blocking, tackling, and catching. That's never going to change. So there's no elaborate scheme. You can have the most elaborate scheme, but at the same time, it all comes down to the team that blocks the best, the teams that tackle the best, and the teams that, makes those catches when they're there, whether you're on offense or you're on defense, when you have to have interception and that defensive back has to make that catch, whether you got to have those type of plays. So it's just being able to execute at the right time, but also being able to make the big plays, the crucial plays, when that time presents itself.
We talked about your background, and we didn't really get into it, but obviously we should. I mean, you obviously college player at Temple, I believe 4-year starter at Temple, if I'm not mistaken. As a fullback, the greatest position ever, fullback. Absolutely love that about you. And then an NFL career, you were what, 5 or 6 different teams throughout your NFL career. So you wind up, you end up retiring, you step aside from the NFL, you decide to go into coaching. First of all, I think you mentioned your background and your coach's background and, with the whole ties with the NFL and their college experience. Your kids seem to have just a confidence advantage. I don't know if that's something that just comes from the fact that they're playing for a Jason McKie or they're playing for an Olin Kreutz. It absolutely amazed me the confidence level and just truly, truly confident your kids were last year, in particular, when I got to talk to them and get to know them a little bit. And then you mentioned the 3 things involved in football and trying to keep it pretty simplistic. Was that one of the big lessons maybe for you when you first made that transition to coaching high school football? And, how much of it is similar, or, did you have to kind of cut things down from where you wanted it? How big of I guess what I'm asking, Jason, is how big of a transition was it for you coming out of the NFL and then having to relate to high school kids and kind of teach things all over again?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. It was very different, and I had to really learn that. When I retired, I had the opportunity to go down to Florida International and be an intern down there with the head coach at that time was Ron Turner, who was our offensive coordinator during my time here in Chicago. And I got to go down there and really get down to the nitty gritty about, all the different things that a coach that entails you in terms of being a coach. And, talking about the X's and O's, that's the easy part, playing the game at the highest level. But all the other things like running a meeting, putting together a game plan, putting together a playbook, running individual drills at practice, putting together a practice script. So, I was able to get a crash course of doing those things on a collegiate level, which really helped me make the transition into high school because, as a high school coach, you wear many hats. You're the equipment manager.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
sending off to be reconditioned. You're in charge of ordering the uniforms, the practice gear, what weight equipment do you need? So you're not just a head coach, you're wearing many hats. And, in terms of going back to the X's and O's, that's something that transition was, I had to really learn that, when my first year here, I brought a system in which it was a pro style system. So our verbiage was really long. The things that we required our kids to know was at a high level, was at a collegiate or NFL level. And a lot of times we found that our kids weren't executing, they weren't playing fast because they were always thinking. So after that first year, understanding like, you know what, we have to dumb it down for our kids. I'm not saying our kids aren't intelligent. I'm
Right.
just saying that we were throwing
Yeah,
too
a
much at
lot.
them. We
Yeah.
were throwing a lot at them. Too many formations, too many shifts. We had 100 something plays in our playbook, and we said, you know what, we'll never be good at anything because we have too much. So
Yeah.
we scaled it back, and we're really. And the good thing is, I think what we do, our coaching staff, is we do a good job of really listening to our kids. So we have a leadership council, and I meet with them, and they'll tell us, hey, coach, this is that, or this was too much, or we don't understand this, and they're open, and we're really receptive to what they're saying because we know as a staff that we're only going to be as good as they are. They're the ones out there on the field playing, so we got to make sure that we're performing at a high level. So we had to scale it back, and we really scaled our offense back, and we really, cut everything down and really focused on the things that we were good at. And the kids were able to play faster. And once we started getting good at certain things, we started adding on to those things. We started adding accessories onto our run game, really marrying, our run and our pass game and different things like that. And that enabled us to play faster. Our kids were more assertive, they were more confident. And that's something that I had to learn as a coach. And I tell our kids, hey, me being, a new head coach, I'm learning every day. And if I'm not learning every day and not trying to learn every day as a head coach, well, guess what? I'm doing you guys an injustice because I'm not continuing to try to gain a competitive edge for us. Like, as a coach, you always got to try to find a competitive edge for your players, for your program. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to be successful, or you're not going to have that level of sustained success.
You're a father. Your son is playing for you. Again, just a terrific Jordan McKie, terrific ball player, just a junior. So you're going to have him back for one more year. How's that been like, getting to coach your son obviously at the high school level? Does that relationship change during the season? Do you and him specifically try to like maybe leave something at school and come home? How do you manage that relationship, and how's that gone?
Yeah, it's been awesome, man, to be able to have the opportunity to coach my son. But I think the biggest thing for me is to see, how much he's grown and what he's overcame. A lot of people don't know, and I know he'll probably be mad at me for disclosing this, but my son, the beginning of his 8th grade year, he suffered a stroke. So, he didn't get to play his 8th grade football. We were in a hospital with him for about 4 months. After those 4 months, he had another year of rehab. So he missed his 8th grade year of football. And then when he came back as a freshman, that was his first year back. So, with him going through that ordeal, he had to learn how to walk, talk, write, all those things. He had to learn how to do all that stuff again. And I think with him, he's like an old soul. He's real mature, and I think he's mature in an old soul because he's had to go through that ordeal. So he's had to mature faster than a lot of kids his age. And I think with him, his work ethic is through the roof because he knows that, hey, this is something that could have been taken from me, and I'm getting another opportunity to play the game that I love, the play that a game that I grew up in. He grew up in the locker room. He's able to talk with his uncle Devin Hester. He's able to talk with Coach Krutz, who's like an uncle to him. So he knows he has a lot of advantages that a lot of kids don't. But he knows that this is something that you can't take for granted because he had to go through that situation. So with him, I'm just proud of the fact that he's able to play the game that he loves again. I'm thrilled that he is one of the kids who he's a leader on our team. He does everything the right way, just like a lot of our kids. And when we're at school, we're at practice, he's just one of the kids. His first year starting for us at corner was last year because he didn't earn the opportunity. He didn't earn that starting cornerback job. His sophomore year, he was on varsity, he was on special teams, but he wasn't, one of our top. He wasn't the best, in terms of being our top corner. So, he came in as a contributor, but he wasn't a starter. And at the same time, he understands that, hey, this is a game just because your name or you have your father played in the NFL, nothing's going to be handed to you. And that's a life lesson. Nothing's going to be handed to you in life. Nothing's going to be handed to you in this game. And I think us as coaches, if we start handing things to our players, let alone our kids, well, then guess what? we're giving them a crutch. They're going to be, they're going to try to lean on us throughout life, and there's going to be a point in time where they're going to have to rely on themselves. And I think we're doing all our kids, and not just our football kids, but our own kids, an injustice if we just keep giving them things and don't have them, work for things and take what they want. And that's what I preach to my kids, preach to my son, but preach to all our kids in our program. If you want something, go take it. And I think that's where the confidence level that you saw, Tim, came in this year. We talk about teams who we play, and I tell our kids, we don't play anybody, they play us. It's about us. I don't care what the jersey name says on their jersey. It's about us. And, go out there and take what you want. And I think the kids have really done that these past few years. They went out there and they've taken what they wanted.
Yeah, by the way, Jason McKie likes to hit people a little bit. He's a physical player, Dad. Where does that come from?
Yeah, he knows his older brother was a really good cornerback as well.
Yep.
Played at NIU and then finished his last year at Western, like to hit people as well. Jordan's kind of in that same mold. Obviously, I like to hit people. So he knows that, hey, if your last name is McKie, the one thing that you better be known for is a sense of physicality. So, he's matured so much and worked so hard, just as with a lot of our other players. But I'm proud to see where he's gone. Where he's been able to to get back and get back on the field. And I'm excited at where he's going to end up. And just like all our kids, like I said, they know that if you're going to play for us, you better be physical. So that's one of the main criteria when you're a Corsair. If you're not physical, you can't be a Corsair.
You've got some unique kids coming back for 2024. I mean, I'll start with the linemen. You've got a really nice core of a big physical offensive lineman coming back. Tommy Lamberti's a kid that honestly, Jason, might be the largest human being I've ever met. Huge kid. I know a kid that's really working hard in the off season. Another one I want to talk about is Trey Taylor. Young man that, let's face it, he's had college scholarship offers before he even started high school. Tremendous kid. You watch him. He's well known in recruiting circles already. That's a unique situation, Coach. Very few high school kids end up with any of the attention that he's gotten, let alone the amount of offers and what have you. Talk about some of your kids coming back, but let's start with Trey Taylor a little bit, because again, it's unique. He was a freshman last year. I know you had him up. I know you had him up on your team in the playoffs, and I know he had a little bit of wrap-up duty. I know against Antioch, I was at that game. I saw him a little bit of a wrap-up duty, but you have a kid that's that young, and you mentioned about your kids having to earn it, and that's the exact feel I got from you, and the way you kind of managed that situation is you're bringing him along. But let's face it, you had a tremendous senior quarterback in Johnny Weber. So talk about Trey, a little bit about him, a little about his unique skills and ability, and how you kind of manage that situation as a head coach.
Yeah, Trey Taylor, you talked about him, being one of the top kids in his class, not just in the state, but overall, in the country. And, he's an extremely humble kid. He's just one of the guys. He wants to be one of the guys. But the one thing that people don't see, right? They see all the accolades, they see him getting offers and attention and stuff like that. But they don't see the amount of time and hard work and in terms of the time that he puts in. He's always throwing. He's always throwing every weekend. He's always throwing. He's playing 7-on-7 football every morning, 5 a.m. Zoom call. Mondays and Wednesdays tonight, 5:30 Zoom call. We're talking coverages. We're talking scheme. We're breaking down NFL film. We're breaking down college film. We're talking quarterback play. And, he's a guy who's all in. Like his mental makeup, his mental aptitude to the game is really high. And you combine that with the work ethic and the skill set that he has, you see why he's going to be one of the top players in the country, not just the state, but in the country, because he has it in terms of what it takes to be, elite at that quarterback position. And it goes back to the work that he puts in, the things that people don't see. And like I said, he's doing all of those things because he wants to be great. But at the same time, he's wanting to bring his teammates along with him. He's challenging his teammates. When we're doing conditioning and we're lifting, he's leading, different groups and things of that nature, challenging his teammates. He's sending his teammates messages in our group chats. Hey, look at this look, against cover two. This is what I'm looking for when he's talking to the receivers. Offensive line, in terms of protection, if this happens, what are we looking at? You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that's going to make him great, right? Because he's a great player as an individual, but we know what makes a great quarterback is a multiplier. He makes everybody around him better, and that sums up Trey Taylor. He's definitely a multiplier, and he's going to really bring about some of the guys who you haven't heard of, who's going to be getting opportunity this year. He's going to really help develop those kids and bring them along, faster. And that's what you want from a quarterback, being a multiplier to make everybody around him better. And that's what he has, and that's what he's been able to do.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch his development the next few years as well. And I know I had a little time to talk to Trey a little bit last year and mention the fact that, the last time I saw a kid in his situation, things worked out okay. He's going to be one of top four probably in the NFL draft, and JJ McCarthy, who I thought Tim Rackey did a hell of a job managing him early on at the high school, because very similar situation. He had offers early, and he kind of worked his way into it and let him build his way up. And it seems like you're doing the same thing with Trey. So well done on that. I know the pressure sometimes with, kids at that age, it could be difficult, but it sounds like you're handling it the great way, Coach. Who else? Who are some other names we need to keep an eye out for 2024 from Carmel?
Yeah, you talked about Tommy Lamberti, and we call him Tiny Tommy. Despite how big he is, his nickname is Tiny Tommy. And I tell him, hey, I don't care how big you are, we're going to keep you humble. And I said, hey, when you're a senior, I may take that Tiny tag off you. You may just be Tommy, but Tiny Tommy is obviously, you talk about his size, but here's another kid whose work ethic's through the roof. He's working out at our school. He'll leave our school. He'll go train at a facility. He'll go lift weights there and do some O-line drills and stuff like that. And it's just a matter of him taking ownership of his craft, wanting to be great. And he knows that the little time that we're allowed to have at school right now is not enough if you want to be elite, if you want to be a great player. So he puts in the extra work, just like I mentioned with Trey. He puts in the extra work, and he's a member of our leadership council as well. He does a great job of, being the first person to volunteer if we have any community initiatives, or he's the first person to volunteer to clean up the field, despite, the attention that he's getting and despite his status, on our team. So that's the type of guys that we want in our program, guys that exhibit servant leadership, and Tommy's one of those guys. And then, another guy, Donovan Day, who's a running back for us, who's also
had a great year. Yep.
Tremendous player. I've had the opportunity of knowing Donovan since he was in middle school. I coached him back when he was playing youth football. His father's been a great friend of mine for a long time. His father's an Army guy, a military guy, so Donovan comes from that type of background, and he has those principles instilled in him. He's all business. He's all work, no play. He wants to be great, and you see, he's really special with the ball in his hand. So, he's another guy who I think, who, in my opinion, is going to be. He's been one of the top running backs in the state, and I think he'll be, at least top 2, top 3 backs in the state, in my opinion, this year. Yep. And his productivity, speaks without question. He's a guy that is really good as a pass blocker. That's an everyday drill that we work on, pass protection, the fundamentals of pass protection. Because I tell Donovan, hey, if you want to play this game for a long time, it's not what you do when you have the ball in your hand. It's what you do in terms of pass protection and when you don't have the ball in your hands. And that's what's going to separate you from, playing on a high school level, playing on a collegiate level, and then one day having aspirations of playing on the NFL level. So I think in terms of high school, I think he's an elite pass protector. You can also split him out wide, and I think he's probably one of our best route runners, and he has great hands like a receiver. But you've seen he has the ability, the toughness to run in between the tackles, but also be real effective out on the perimeter. So he's a do-everything back, a complete back, and I think he hasn't necessarily – he's gotten some attention. He hasn't gotten that first offer yet, but I think it's coming based upon his body of work and his ability, the ability that he has as running back.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was really impressed with him last year as well. Schedule, another cakewalk for you. So again, I mean, you're looking at your home schedule. You get Lake Forest at home, St. Lawrence, Mary Catholic, Loyola. Yeah, no big deal there.
Yeah.
On the road at Grays Lake Central, at Providence, at Montini. at DePaul Prep and at Fenwick. So now you know what it's like playing in the Catholic League. So I want to ask you this. So you obviously born, raised in Florida, played Florida high school football. We hear all the time about Florida. We hear about Florida speed up here. We hear that a lot. I want to know what it's like being involved in the Catholic League and how they differ.
Yeah, you know what? It's a lot different in terms of, I think up here you have real big rugged linemen, real good physical players, players that have to excel in the elements because we know Chicago weather. I mean, yesterday it was 70 degrees. Today it's last night it was snowing outside. You know what I mean?
You can't make this stuff up. I swear.
Right. You can. So yeah, you get a different type of player. You get more of a blue collar player up here. A player that may not have the speed, may not have the flash or the wiggle in terms of skill positions, like we like to call it, like some of the kids that we have back home. They have. I think you have the kids up here. I think they're more tough-minded. They have to be because of the things that they go through. Like I said, playing in the elements, playing in negative degree temperatures, playing in snow and stuff like that. Back home, definitely more speed. I would say we have the edge on skill players, receivers, running backs, in the secondary safeties and corners. I say we have the edge on that. Linebackers that can run. Here you have linebackers that are more run stuffers. Like I said, more running guys. So those are some of the things that I see that are different. Both states have really good football. Obviously Florida's, gets mentioned as one of the top states in football, as it should. Look at every year, the top prospects, regardless of position, you're always going to find, 2, 3, or 4 guys from Florida. And when you look at the top 25 teams in the country, there's always going to be 2 or 3 Florida teams in the top 10. And but in the state of Illinois, like the Catholic League is really special. And I really learned that it's such a tradition and history in the Catholic League in terms of programs and how many guys have gone through these programs and gone on to play Big Ten football, have gone on to play at Notre Dame, have gone on to play at, high prestigious institutions of college football, but also being able to go on and play in the NFL. And you see why. It's an elite level of coaching. There's a lot of great coaches in the Catholic League, and I think the parity is really spread out. So a lot of great players. Every single week is like a playoff game. And it's fun as a coach because, every single week you're getting the opportunity to go up against another great coaching staff and another great program that has a deep-rooted history just like your program. So, every week's a playoff game. And like I said, when I had the opportunity to start coaching in this league, I commend the coaches because, the amount of time that we put in, that's unseen, we spend more time with our football kids than our own families. And those are things that people don't see. So, for me, whenever I have an opportunity or a platform to commend all the coaches, that are coaching high school football, I want to commend them because it's a thankless job. It's a job that's year round. It's 365. And like I said, if you want to have an opportunity at being great, these are the things you have to do. So it's a credit to all the coaches, around the state, but especially in the Catholic League, because you're going up against great programs and great talent each and every Friday.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to bag on Florida. Florida speed's a real thing. I can tell you firsthand, I've seen it. So there's no doubt about it. Jason, one more before I let you go. And again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me. Let's say I make you the czar of Illinois high school football for a day. Give me one thing you'd like to change, something you'd like to see us do maybe differently, or a rule change or what have you. What would it be?
Yeah, being in Florida, we had an opportunity to play spring football. So right now, even in my high school, they're getting ready to play spring football. And at the conclusion of spring football, they'll play a jamboree. So a jamboree is where you'll play 2 different teams. You'll play one team for a half, and then you'll play another team for a half, right? And it just gives you an opportunity, just like college, to really evaluate your players, to give them extra football. And it just makes the preparation that much easier for when you get into the fall. We don't have that opportunity here. We don't play spring football. And, I know the weather is can attest to that, but I wish we had the ability to play spring football. I think the state and our players would be further along if we did. I think we'd be able to close that gap in terms of being on an elite high school level with those teams in California, those teams in Texas, those teams in Florida. I think we'd be able to close that gap if we did, because, for us, we finish the season, and then the first time these kids put on pads again is not until the summer.
Right.
You don't put on full pads until fall camp. Summer camp, you only can wear helmets and shoulder pads. So it puts us, a few months behind as to where, some of these kids in these other states, they've already, put back on that full uniform. They've already tackled to the ground and stuff like that in spring football. These coaches already have a great grasp of who they have coming back. They've already somewhat established depth charts, whereas we won't get an opportunity to do that until the summertime. So that's one thing I can change. But, I think the IHSA does a great job in terms of, scheduling, in terms of how they promote the playoffs, in terms of, the amount of teams that play on TV. I think it's really good, and I think it's continuing to evolve. And, we'll see time and time again. Tim, you talked about, J.J. McCarthy, a kid who's going to be drafted really high. Well, guess what? There's a number of kids that have played, played ball here in the state that are playing in the NFL. And, I had opportunity to be around, Cole Kmet each and every week with my job with ESPN. Another kid who played here in the state. I won't say the school because it's a rival, but can't give him no credit, Tim. But Cole's a great guy, and he came up through the IHSA, high school football. So that shows you the level of play. That just shows you the level of coaching and the development that takes place within each and every program here in the state. So that's the only thing I would change. But I'm proud to be a part of it, and it's definitely an honor to be leading young men and help developing young men through the game of football here in this state.
And again, Jason, great to have you on. And everybody, follow Jason on Twitter at JMac37. By the way, Jason did radio this year, was part of the Bears radio network, did sideline work, as I told you off the air. I thought you did a tremendous job, and I found some of those interviews really, really strong. So again, just congratulations on being able to make that transition. And keep coaching high school football, will you? Definitely need you to stick around and continue to do the great work you're doing. And folks, I'm telling you, the Corsairs are here to stay. No doubt about it in my mind. So again, Jason McKie, everybody, and my friend, we will talk to you very soon down the line. And the warm weather will come back. I'm pretty certain of it. We had a nice taste of it, and now it's gone. But hopefully, it'll be back.
Yeah. But Tim, I want to say thank you for everything you do, man. I appreciate it. I followed you for years, even before I started coaching, and like I talked about with coaches, the work that we put in, it goes unseen. A lot of work that you do, covering a lot of teams in the state, putting out the write-ups and really talking about players, all that holds value in terms of these kids getting opportunities to go on and play college football. So, my message would be for the parents, really, when you have a guy like EDGYTIM, putting out content, talking about players, talking about teams, that helps your child, have an opportunity to go on and play college football. So, Tim, I appreciate you, man. You've been doing it for years. Fantastic, man. And, anything you need from me, you always got it, man. So thank you for your time.
No problem, pal. I appreciate that very much. So again, appreciate Jason McKie joining us, and stay tuned. More coming.